Hello neighbor, this is Curt at eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Westin Great Step Nerf Bars on our 2024 Toyota Tacoma. Now, if you have any experience with the Westin Great Step, please leave it in the comments below. We'd love to share your experience with other neighbors in order to help them make the best decision for themselves possible. Now, the Great Step is made completely of steel, so it is a very heavy-duty step. It's going to be 6 1/4 inches wide, and it's got these really aggressive serrations across the top that stick about 1/4 inch high up. It's going to do a really good job of getting the excess mud and snow off of your shoes or boots before getting into the cab of your truck. Now, the length of the Nerf bars are really going to be dependent on which vehicle you have and how far they need to reach across either one or both doors on your vehicle. The bracket kit is also going to be custom depending on which vehicle you have. Now let's take a look at this on the truck and see how they look. So that 6 1/4 inch wide width is going to be plenty for really just about any shoe or boot size. You get a really good grip across the bottom with those serrations, and again, they're going to do a great job of scraping any excess mud off of your boots. The length that we have for the vehicle, and this was the recommended length for this particular truck, is definitely enough to cover both doors, plus a little bit extra, so you have a little extra room to scrape off some excess before you get in. There's not going to be any liquid building up on this at all either because the serrations are open, so any kind of liquid can fall through that. And it's a really good look on this truck. I really like the rugged type of look. It gives it more of a work truck or outdoor off-road type of feel, which if that's the look that you're going for, this is a great recommendation. Now, with all that being said, let's take a look at exactly how this is going to fit on our 2024 Toyota Tacoma. Now, the install kit for the 24 Tacoma is a 3-bracket install kit. So we'll be using the 3 existing brackets that were in here, which we saw. This running board is a 79-inch version. So if you're looking on the Tacoma, make sure you have your vehicle correct in our fit guide and make sure you're getting the 79-inch version if you have the double cab. That way, it's going to run from door seam to door seam. It covers both doors really, really well. And we have this running board positioned so that it's actually all the way in as far as it could be toward the vehicle. Anything further out than that really was a bit too wide for the profile of this truck. Now, at some point you may, put a lift, maybe some bigger, wider tires on your Tacoma. At that point, I could see you moving it out a bit, but pushed all the way in, it actually maybe only comes out about 1 inch past where your tire sidewalls would be. One of the things about the Tacoma that we noticed too for 2024 is that without a running board or Nerf bar, it's a really high step to get up here. It's about a 22-inch distance from the ground up to this door threshold point right here. That's a pretty aggressive step, especially if you have anybody smaller like kids or anything like that getting in and out of the vehicle. Something like this could really help out. So with the step, we're knocking that initial first jump to 15 inches, and then from there up to here is going to be another 7. That's really aggressively cuts down how high you have to get into the vehicle. So on something like the Tacoma, if it doesn't come with Nerf bars or running boards, adding a set is really going to come in handy on this particular truck. Now, in regards to our positioning as far as how close and how far away from the truck we wanted to go, again, with the profile of the truck, we had these positioned as close to the vehicle as it could get, which, as you can still see, is still plenty of room to get just about any shoe size up on here and plenty of width as well. And that's going to be really nice when you're trying to scrape your shoes and boots with all the mud or snow off of it before getting into your truck. Now, one of the things you may notice about these aesthetically is that you got a bit of a gap here between the vehicle and the top of the step. It doesn't create a very factory or OEM look, but frankly, on Nerf bars like this, I think having that extra add-on kind of aftermarket look is really appealing. It really just kind of makes it look like you're accessorizing this truck to handle those tough workplaces or those outdoor adventures that you might go on. Now let's go ahead and take a look at exactly how we got these installed. So the first thing we're going to do is take our passenger front bracket, which is easily identifiable because it's at this angle, plus it has the stamping on it we discussed before. And each bracket is going to require 2 of those hex bolt assemblies that we showed you, and I've got my 13mm socket wrench. Now the first thing I'm going to need to do is remove the existing bolts that are under here, which are located at an angle here and here. On our passenger side is going to go with this next set of bolts here. There's no angle to this as far as the bracket goes, so they're just going to go on pretty directly. Now, what you're also going to find is that the next set and the next set after is really going to be dependent on the type of vehicle and the type of running boards you get as far as which of these sets to use for your third passenger side bracket. If you have a shorter cab, this is likely the set you're going to need to use. If you have the double cab, this is the set that you're going to likely use. It could also be dependent on the type of running boards you get, but these are going to go on the same way, regardless of which one of these you end up going with. And we're simply going to need to repeat this same process over on the driver's side. Now we've got our first rear mount installed on the passenger side, but something that we noticed as we were taking the Toyota bolts out is that the Westin install guide is going to let you know that you need a 13mm wrench for the bolt heads, which is true of the bolts that come with the bracket kit. However, the Toyota bolts that we're removing, we found out are actually 12mm. So 12mm, like, well, this is the 13mm. You could see how loose that is. That really gave us a fight as far as getting these out. So get yourself a 12mm wrench as well for the removal of the Toyota bolts. You will need the 13mm, however, when we install the bolts from the install kit. Now that we've got our brackets installed, let's go ahead and see how the Nerf bar itself is going to mount onto those brackets. So the first thing we'll want to do is go ahead and turn it over. And what we'll notice under here is that it's going to come with 3 different sets of these bolts here that are actually going to be what fits into our brackets. Now, out of the box, you may notice that these are very stiff. You really can't move them. That's because our 4mm hex wrench here is going to be inserted into the end of that. When these are tightened down, it actually tightens the bracket in so it doesn't slide back and forth. That's what's going to keep your running board from sliding forward and back while you're traveling. So the first thing we'll need to do is get them loosened up. And it doesn't take a whole lot of turns on this to get them loose. Loose enough to move anyways. And once we have that loosened up, we should be able to slide the bracket pretty easily. Now we can move it into position to exactly where our brackets are located before we thread the bolts through and get them attached. Now we got that loosened up and we can position it freely. The next step we're going to take before setting it actually on the brackets is going to be to put this plate on. Once we have that in place, it will mount on your bracket as such, at which point, as you can see with those ovular holes, we'll be able to position it closer and further away from the vehicle this way. And once we have it on there and in a spot that we like it, we can go ahead and do our bolt assembly as such, and then tighten it down using our 13mm socket wrench. Now we don't want to tighten it down completely because we want to leave some maneuverability just to tweak it and make sure it's perfect. The last step in this installation will be torquing the bolts to 15 to 18 pounds. Now I had mentioned that the vehicle that we have today only requires 3 brackets for installation, but if you have a running board that requires 4 brackets, they do give you the parts to assemble that into your Nerf bars here, and we'll do that as such. We'll take this plate here, insert it in. Next will be this L-shaped plate here. which we can insert in right there. What we'll then do is take these two bolts. Now make sure that when you're doing this, you're putting the closed end down. Remember, this is how we tighten and loosen these brackets. So we want to make sure that the end that's going to accept the hex key is up on the top. We're going to go ahead and thread those in as such. And we'll be able to tighten those down once they get into the correct position and putting that third plate on. Now, the reason that we showed you how the brackets went on up on the table is that, as you can imagine, it's very difficult to get under here and show you exactly what we're doing. So being able to see that up on the table, that's precisely how we put it on. We simply turned it over with the bolts facing downward. We left them sliding and loose so that we could position them into the mounting bracket holes, at which point, once we had the length adjusted to where we wanted it, and from here we're basically going from door seam to door seam. This one actually fit this truck very, very well. Once we had the forward and back adjusted the way we wanted, we went ahead and took our 4mm hex key and tightened down those bolts that were in there to keep it from sliding back and forth. After that, those ovular holes that could move the Nerf bars toward or away from the vehicle, we actually have them on this vehicle positioned all the way as close as we can. We think that that really, with the profile of this vehicle, didn't have it sticking out too far, but also had plenty of room to get your foot on. Now that we have all that on and tightened down and adjusted the way we want to, the final step we have in our installation is going to be getting that 15 to 18 foot-pounds of torque on each bolt. Now, there are 12 bolts on each side of the vehicle. And we had mentioned earlier that this is the last step. So now we're going to just go through and tighten each one of those down to that 15 pounds. And once that's done, we should be ready to roll. So if you're looking for a new set of running boards or Nerf bars for your 2024 Toyota Tacoma, the Great Step from Westin is a fantastic option. And with everything that we had previously mentioned, the coverage on it is really good. The adjustability is great as well if you want to bring it out further or take it in, or even if you wanted to, for some reason, move it front to back. I think it's in a perfect position just the way it is. It's got a really good, rugged, outdoor, aftermarket type of look. So for any of those heavy utility purposes, like going to a job site, or if you're somebody that just likes to off-road or go camping a lot, this is a great set of Nerf bars for you. It shows that kind of gap in between here, which also gives it less of a factory look and more of an aftermarket look. And it's a very aggressive looking type of Nerf bar, which I think fits the Toyota Tacoma perfectly. So with all that said, I think this is a great option for you. Again, this is Curt at eTrailer. Thanks for stopping by.